This is Gran Turismo 4 Online. Not Gran Turismo 4, online, which is technically possible, but not officially supported. No, this is a completely separate SKU called Gran Turismo 4 Online, and until just now, you probably didn't know it existed. See, back in 2006, Polyphony Digital ran 2 closed beta tests of an online multiplayer mode for Gran Turismo 4, one for Japan and South Korea, and another for the United States. The goal was not to create a commercial version of Gran Turismo 4 with online features, but instead to test online multiplayer infrastructure and technology that was being built for the upcoming Gran Turismo 5. 5,000 Asian beta testers were selected from active members of GranTurismo.com, while 3,000 American testers were pulled from the PlayStation Gamer Advisory Panel, an invitation-only group of PlayStation owners who were often called upon to provide feedback when Sony needed something tested. Relatively few details about the actual beta test process are known. Sony subjected everyone participating in the tests to non-disclosure agreements. But keep in mind, this was the PlayStation 2. This beta was not downloaded, nor did it have online activation or DRM. Players were simply mailed a special game disc, playable on any PlayStation 2, which was inevitably dumped and released on the internet. If you've got a PS2, backwards compatible PS3, or a decent PC, there's a pretty good chance that you yourself can play this. Stick around to the end of the video to find out how. Personally, I used my launch model PS3 and loaded the game off of the solid-state drive I've dropped into it. Booting up GT4 Online for the first time is, well, it's Gran Turismo 4, but there are 2 key differences. First, while GT mode is accessible, players can't access the normal Gran Turismo 4 save game. Instead, everything is unlocked from the jump. The garage contains basically every car by default. The second, more obvious difference is the new online menu, where players are prompted to set up their network and connect to Sony's DNAS service. For those not familiar with DNAS, it stands for Dynamic Network Authentication System, and it was basically how Sony made sure your system was legitimate, unmodified, and allowed to connect to online services. I say was because DNAS was shuttered back in 2016, essentially killing off the ability to play PS2 games online via official means. But nothing is really dead forever. Bypassing DNAS is not exactly easy, but it's a pretty common practice in the PS2 homebrew scene. And thankfully, Gran Turismo 4 Online is one of the games that has been saved to the patched ISO file. Like other games, you'll need to input one of a few custom DNS servers that point to community-hosted servers for these games, but really, getting GT4 online was as easy as creating my network settings, inputting the custom DNS, and boom. There I was, creating my Gran Turismo Online user profile. Note the very weird, very Polyphony Digital on-screen keyboard. And that was really it. Surprisingly, Gran Turismo 4 Online has been remarkably stable, especially for such an old game that I'm playing through such unofficial means. I've experienced basically 0 issues at all. I haven't so much as lagged, even playing across oceans. Only one person I've played with has experienced desync, and I think their emulator settings might have been the root of the problem, since they live far closer to me than others in the lobby. Racing inches apart from each other feels as smooth and natural as it would have in split screen. And once I got past the novelty of playing Gran Turismo 4 online, I started to notice a lot of the little bits and pieces of DNA that would later find their way into the mainline Gran Turismo releases. The main online menu offers a few options for online racing lobbies: quick races, special events, custom races, time trial, and news. Time trials don't work anymore, but they likely worked the same as those found in the modern games, with set cars, tracks, and setups that likely would have rotated out if this was the original server. The news section was a pretty simple message of the day segment, likely used similarly to the way that the news section is used in the current games. Today, it just contains a message from the host of the revived server. Quick races and special events were pre-configured events with special themes or car restrictions, not unlike daily races in Gran Turismo Sport and 7. And wouldn't you know it, this is the first appearance of the N-Class system that is still in use to this day. Custom races were user-created lobbies where players could pick any car they liked, but presumably the host would indicate what cars players were expected to use through the lobby's name. It is pretty familiar, but this is the feature of GT4 Online that least resembles the finished product. Completely lacking the whole warm-up free run feature introduced in Gran Turismo 5, And overall, the lobbies are very bare bones in terms of configuration and settings. All you can select is the track and the number of laps, nothing else. Interestingly, there's nothing stopping players who aren't the hosts from changing the track or even force launching the race as they please. Everyone is basically on the honor system to not grief each other. That's likely because only a few thousand players would be granted access to this thing, and it would likely be pretty easy to track down and ban troublemakers, who would be risking their chances of receiving future Sony beta access by making trouble. Nowadays, it's just a recipe for memes. But with the ability to add room passwords, it won't be much of an issue if your friends aren't dicks. Gran Turismo 4 Online was an important stepping stone towards the modern era of Gran Turismo, never intended for public release. And yet, as a consequence of the time at which it came into existence, GT4 Online is not only accessible to anyone curious enough to seek it out, it's fully playable to this day, thanks in no small part to the hobbyists who kept it alive. If you're interested in playing Gran Turismo 4, or indeed basically any other older game online, stay tuned. You're going to want to hear this. As it stands, it's possible to play most old games online if you're patient and dedicated enough. But as someone who's been in that hobby for years, finding people for specific games has never been that easy. Vintage online gaming enthusiasts are scattered into hundreds of micro-communities, existing in Discord servers for specific consoles or even specific games. These communities are great, and they do really important work. In fact, the Gran Turismo 4 server we use in this very video was born out of a SOCOM community. But for a few years now, I've been wanting a community that acts as a hub for all flavors of vintage multiplayer gaming, from revived servers and emulator netplay to LAN tunneling and split-screen streaming. I want all of these things to be accessible in one place, and of course, for that one place to have resources, linking back to all the more focused communities that inspired it. All while fostering a more helpful, positive, and inclusive community for everyone. This video was the kick in the ass I needed to finally do it, so some friends and I are soft launching a new Discord community known as Legacy Online. We've got a growing selection of guides and a robust role system in place to help connect you with other players interested in playing all manner of ancient or unpopulated multiplayer video games. I'll probably end up making a full video about playing old games online to properly launch the server once we've got some wind in our sails and I've worked out the branding, our wiki, and how events are gonna work. But now that I'm settled into my new home, I honestly can't wait to host some open lobbies. So, come on through and check out Legacy Online, grab your roles, and keep an eye out for some events in the near future. I'm especially going to need some help gathering footage for a certain game with a really big house.